All right, welcome everyone. Really glad you're here for the 30 by 30 Partnership Virtual Expo. This is our third week, and I just need to say that I'm loving these. They're really a lot of fun. It's great to get to talk to people about all the great programs that are going to help us with 30 by 30. So a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This meeting is being recorded. And if you have questions today, we'd like you to submit them through the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. The chat is definitely open for you to talk to each other and let us know if you're having any technical problems, but I'll be monitoring the Q&A for questions. If you don't know me, my name is Jennifer Norris. I am the Deputy Secretary for Biodiversity and Habitat with the California Natural Resources Agency. I lead the state's 30 by 30 initiative, which really just means I'm chief cheerleader. You're all doing such tremendous work. 30 by 30 is our commitment to conserve 30% of California's lands and coastal waters by 2030. And you can learn more about this initiative by visiting our website, by downloading our Pathways to 30 by 30 strategy, which was released in April, or watching the plenary session from our 30 by 30 partnership kickoff event in September. Links to all of those are being added to the chat now. On September 28th, we had an extraordinary event to kick off our 30 by 30 partnership at the California Natural Resources Agency. This event included a community expo to make connections with over 20 agency partners, funders, and technical assistance providers. 30 by 30 at the end of the day is locally driven, and we want to make sure that the resources that will help us all be successful are widely available to everyone. The event was filled to capacity. You can see these photos. It was a crowded house and it was a lot of fun. So we actually had to turn people away. and we also know some folks just weren't able to travel and join us in person. So we're hosting this virtual expo series with the hope that we can bring the experience of that day to people throughout the state. Today, I am really excited to be joined by people from CDFW, which is a department close to my heart. I come from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, so I know the kind of work they do and how important it is. We're joined today by Karen Weiss, Lauren Barva, and Brad Henderson. They're each going to give you a brief introduction of their programs, funding opportunities, and other resources that are going to help us advance 30 by 30. We'll then spend most of our time, we'll try to address questions from you, and then we'll close at the top of the hour. And if any questions that come in are easy to answer, my team will try to answer them in the Q&A. Anyway, with that, I'm going to switch over to give the floor to Karen. And again, thank you all for being here. Hi, Karen.
Hi, hold on. Let me share my screen and get started. So my name is Karen Weiss. I'm, as Jen so nicely said, I'm the Environmental Program Manager for the Landscape Conservation Planning Program. So a little bit about where I'm situated in CDFW. I'm in the Habitat Conservation Planning branch, and we have a variety of programs, including our native plant program, timber conservation, fire resiliency, our environmental permitting and review program. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about the Habitat Restoration and Enhancement Act. And then I'll talk about my program, the Landscape Conservation Planning Program. So Habitat Restoration and Enhancement Act, HREA, it's streamlined approval for small voluntary restoration projects. You'll hear more about restoration projects in a little bit. They're smaller than 5 acres and about 500 linear feet of a stream. And you can meet and get this permit if you meet certain eligibility requirements. It's for any person, public agency, or nonprofit. And projects approved under the HREA don't require any additional CDFW permits. So it's a great option for small restoration. I'm gonna, with any questions for this, I'll point you to Lucy Hayworth, the HREA coordinator. And then on this slide is also the website to learn more about the HREA program. Now back to landscape conservation planning. So landscape conservation planning program has 2 sides of it. One is large-scale landscape conservation, and we have 2 big programs under that, and that's the Natural Community Conservation Plans, or NCCPs. And then we also have the Regional Conservation Investment Strategy Program, or RCIS program, as we like to call it. And there's 3 components to this program. Two of them are landscape conservation, the regional conservation assessment, and the regional conservation investment strategy. Then on the other side, we have specific mitigation, which is advanced mitigation crediting, and we have conservation and mitigation banking, and the mitigation credit agreements under the RCIS program. So what does this mean and how does this impact 30 by 30? So natural community conservation plans. The purpose is a planning effort designed to provide for region-wide protection of plants, animals, and their habitats, while allowing for compatible and appropriate economic activity. This results in a plan implemented by a local implementing entity, and it includes a take permit. The biggest part of this is it also includes permanent protection of land and conservation above and beyond mitigation. As far as the program's success, we have 17 approved NCCPs around the state and 8 NCCPs in various stages of planning. This covers over 8 million acres of land in California and nearly 400 species. The big news for us this year is that we received $36 million for CDFW to create a grant program for the NCCP. It's to enhance NCCPs and HCPs for implementation, planning, land acquisition, monitoring, and adaptive management efforts. So that's something big that we're working on this year. All right. Our other large-scale planning program, as I said before, is the RCIS program. This one's voluntary, non-regulatory, and non-binding. The purpose of it is for a science-based approach to identify conservation and enhancement opportunities. It establishes biological goals and objectives, and that is to inform future conservation investments. Where are we going to invest in conservation in our areas? This program is about 5 years old, and we have 7 approved RCISs with 4 more along in the way. And so it is a budding program. As for our advanced mitigation, we have 2 programs. MCAs are based on conservation and habitat enhancement actions that are outlined in an approved RCIS. So it's kind of the local, on the ground, commitment to do conservation. Banking programs include an MOU with 8 other agencies. So when you go through the bank program, you also can get credits for Fish and Wildlife Service, NOAA NIMS, EPA is involved, the Water Board, as I said, 8 other agencies. Both result in advanced mitigation credits that to offset impacts for projects. Such programs within CDFW include CISA, CEQA, and the Lake and Streambed Alteration Program. Both of these programs result in permanently protected lands, and that includes conservation easements or long-term durability agreements. And both add to the amount of durably protected land in California. That said, I'll put one plug in. The RCIS program is releasing program guidelines next week, and that includes the anticipated MCA guidelines. So please reach out and let me know if you want to get on that list. But that is the overall role of Landscape Conservation Planning Program and HREAs for CDFW. And I think I'm passing it, I'll let Jen pass it over to Lauren.
Yeah, I just want to interject and say thank you for doing that nice overview of these programs. We really highlighted these in our Pathways document because regional planning is really the best way to identify the most important places to protect. And of course, you know, development's going to occur, so I'm putting that in the right spot. So I'm so glad you highlighted all these programs. They're near and dear to my heart. So well done. Thank you. Lauren, take it away.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Lauren Barva. I am the Policy and Outreach Manager with the Watershed Restoration Grants Branch here at CDFW. Some of you I have probably talked to, noticing from the chat. I work on Prop 1, Prop 68, our Greenhouse Gas Restoration Grant Program, and our Fisheries Restoration Grant Program. And today I'm here to tell you about some new funding that we are getting ready to announce that have a streamlined application process. So starting hopefully this month, the date will be available soon. CDFW will have over 200 million available for restoration, a portion of which will be available for grant funding. So these new funding initiatives include approximately 35 million for addressing climate impacts, which will fund projects addressing urgent degrading water and habitat conditions due to climate change impacts. We'll also have approximately 54 million for wetlands and mountain meadows restoration under the nature-based solutions, which will fund restoration mountain meadows and non-coastal wetlands outside of the Delta, consistent with the Natural and Working Lands Climate March strategy, which is part of the governor's 30 by 30 efforts. We'll also have approximately 42 million for wildlife corridors, which is funding to support connectivity projects that advance multi-benefit and nature-based solutions, consistent with the State Wildlife Action Plan, the California Wildlife Barriers Report, and the Fish Passage Annual Report Legislative Report, as well as the funding to support drought relief, specifically for protecting salmon. The drought funds are looking for planning and implementation projects that enhance resiliency to drought and climate change through restoration, protection, or enhancement of riparian and aquatic habitat and rivers and channels, reconnection of historical floodplains, or improvements to ecological functions. Within the drought funds, there are going to be some specific carve-outs for specific areas, such as the Klamath watershed, the Scott River and its tributaries, and the Shasta River and its tributaries. Additionally, CDFW will also have another round of funding for its Proposition 1 and Proposition 28 or 68 grant programs. Part of this funding, through the department's Cutting the Green Tape efforts, we've streamlined the application process to accelerate restoration with a concept proposal application, which is different from what we've previously done in the past. So this new application is going to be a rolling application, which makes restoration funding available on an as-needed basis and allows CDFW to select the most appropriate funding source for each project based on the proposed work. So all applicants have to do is come to us, tell us what your project is, and we are going to let you know which funding source is going to be most appropriate. To start this, applicants will new single concept proposal that will be considered for all the different funding sources that I mentioned above. So all you have to do is submit this condensed down 3-page concept proposal. There will be additional attachments as appropriate for the project. But then once you submit that concept application, CDFW will engage with the application, with applicants during the proposal and the review stages and provide feedback and guidance on next steps. So the goal of this new streamlined process is to have an applicant submit a concept proposal and then get awarded in as quickly as 30 days for all of our new funding initiatives, which is something that we haven't done in the past. And so we're really making a large step here to try to get all of this restoration funding out to you as quick as possible. If you have, if you're not sure about your project, we also offer consultations. So you can just email me and we will set up consultations to discuss your project prior to submitting a concept application. And I know Jason's going to put a link in the chat. That way, this information is not yet available. It should be available within this next month. So if you go to our wildlife.ca.gov/grants pages, this is where all the information and the new restoration grants will be posted.
Awesome. That is getting money out the door fast. That's all I gotta say.
Very
Well done. Well done. So yeah, I guess folks should stay tuned is there an email address that they can put themselves on,
Yes, in the
get
grants
notified?
page, yes, in the grants page, you will see a subscribe section where you put your email address, and you, as soon as all of this funding is available, you will get an email.
Excellent. That's always the best. We love email. More email, the better. Okay. Thank you, Lauren. Brad, you're up. Cutting Green
All
Tape
right.
King.
I am going to go quick in the interest of time. I'm just going to touch on a few things here. I am the program manager for CDFW statewide Cutting the Green Tape program. We've heard a lot about conservation. We know that that alone is not enough. We also need to do restoration of lands that are conserved as well as lands that are going to be conserved. And that's where my program comes in. We're a multidisciplinary statewide team focusing really on three main things. The first being grant funding efficiencies, and that goes from procedural type things, such as what Lauren just went through, as well as stretching grant dollars to have them go further and do more great work. And that can be, for example, taking a line item for CEQA review and taking that from $100,000, hopefully down to something like $10,000. So that's one of our functions. Another is implementing and creating new permitting tools and working on the new CEQA exemption, which I'll get into in just a second. And my favorite part of what we do is project coordination, actually working with project proponents from the very concept stage all the way through to implementation on all kinds of different things. And so we're really here as kind of a concierge service for restoration. And so some of the things that our staff are working on, and we have staff all over the state, we have a new permit called the Restoration Management Permit, which is an umbrella permit, which consolidates various CDFW permits for take, and that's pursue, catch, capture, or kill protected species. And kind of the bottom line there is we know that if you're going to restore habitat for these protected species, you got to work where they live. And this really gives us the flexibility to allow for more of that, to do bigger and better projects. And so that restoration management permit combines take authorizations for CISA listed species, that's the California Endangered Species Act, as well as this other category called fully protected, which in the past we've had a very difficult time figuring out how to authorize take for those species. So that's one example of something that we work on and our staff do, and we're writing these permits now. The second is a new thing called the Restoration Consistency Determination. And what that does, it's basically a statement from CDFW that says something like, if you have a federal permit that authorizes take, and that federal permit is consistent with CISA, you don't need an additional permit from us. So it's another lane. Sometimes a project really needs a restoration management permit. Maybe there's a fully protected species in play, or maybe there's a state listed species that's not also federally listed. And in other cases, we've just got a species or two that we're worried about. They're dually listed, both under the feds and the state. And in those cases, the CD is something else that we can do. We can write these CDs for project-specific federal take permits as well as programmatic federal take permits. So we're kind of getting more into the programmatic realm with the restoration CD. Karen's already told you all about HREA. I'm not going to talk about it more, other than members of the CGT team are the folks actually preparing these HREA approvals. And then finally, kind of the new kid on the block is the statutory exemption for restoration projects, which is the new CEQA exemption. It can cover projects large or small, and really is this amazing new opportunity to really, really break down some of these barriers and delays that keep restoration from happening as quickly as we would like. And so to date, we've issued about 10 or 11 concurrences under the new statutory exemption, and we saved about $1 million and counting in terms of CEQA costs. That's it for me. We have a Cutting the Green Tape webpage, as well as the link at the bottom of the screen here, which is an inbox. If you need help with your project, that's the best place to start. We'll put you in touch with the right people. And that's really it. So I will go
Thanks,
ahead and
Brad.
unshare my screen if I can figure out how to do that. There we go.
Down at the bottom. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. And Lauren and Karen, come on back. Brad, I just want to say that, cutting green tape is in my purview. I am just endlessly proud and thrilled at the work that you are all doing at DFW. And there are just so many compliments for your team for how efficient and pleasant it is to work with you all to get restoration done. So I just want to give you kudos in front of all the people here.
Thank you.
Karen, I'm going to ask you kind of a hard question, and I worked on these things before, but how does the average person get engaged in these sort of regional planning efforts? I know they're all kind of different, but what's your vision for that? I know that, obviously local governments or local developers have an interest, but if you're just a person who cares about a place, how do you get engaged in that?
Yeah, I think it depends on where they are in the planning of that program. So, for example, we are just starting a few NCCPs and like the North Baylands RCIS, and there's a steering committee just being formed for that. But there is a public process for both of those regional conservation programs, and so you can reach out to us and get on our email list to start. Reach out to the county who is leading it. If it's like an NCCP, it's often a county agency, or an RCIS is a different public agency. So reach out to them as they get started and find out where they are in the process, and ask them just to be added to their email list, and tell them you're an interested party and you want to know more about the community that they're looking to create with these plans.
That's great. And does your website show which plans are in process in addition to those that are being implemented?
Yes, we definitely do for the RCISs as they go through. And I should say the RCIS program, to plan for an RCIS, there is grant funding for that. And there's grant funding available to plan for an NCCP as well through federal Section 6. So if you're a community and you want to engage in this, there's grants to help you plan it. There's even grants out there for NCCPs to help you implement it. So awesome. It's not like that we just have this program and here you go, do it yourself. We have ability to help you along the way.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's worth a lot, because they're a lift, but they're really a great way to figure out what's important to protect in your place and to do it in a science-based way. So I love that. Lauren, how are you getting these programs moving so fast? That's really exciting. Tell us your secret for anybody else who's out there.
So we kind of looked at our process as a whole and had a group of CDF staff members that really kind of narrowed down what items we need to know for funding and what items can wait for the grant agreement or prior to awarding, and kind of took the bigger picture, nailed it down to what we need to know and what we can ask. And then we have dedicated staff that are going to help streamline the review process so we could try to get the grant funding out quicker. And this is a new concept for us. Having a concept proposal, we typically do a full application and you can only apply during this 6 weeks of the year. And so now we're opening it up to year round. It's always going to be open. Come to us when your project's ready, when you have something, and then we will figure out which funding source it fits within. We'll let you know if we don't have a funding source that it fits within, but for most of the projects we anticipate, we'll find the funding source that fits and we'll help you get the funds that you need for the project.
That's awesome. And I love too that you mentioned all these other program funds that are available. So for those of you that are tracking, we had the nature-based solutions set aside, which was almost $1 billion plus or minus a couple $100 million. But there are other programs sprinkled throughout our budget that are going to support 30 by 30, whether they're helping us with restoration, moving things along the path toward permanent protection, or these other things. So the budget you can sort of look at it the way you want to, and I see about $2 billion sort of distributed throughout that are really going to help us achieve our goals. So I love that you highlighted those. Brad, do you have any sense for how much cutting green tape is really helping people get projects done? Do you have any stats or data or gee whiz facts you could share?
Just a couple. I think we're trying to track cost savings and time savings, and we're seeing kind of at least $2.5 million so far in cost savings total, and that's split between CEQA cost savings, which I already mentioned, and then other permits. So, for example, it's really expensive to get an incidental take permit from CDFW, and we hope to never do one of those again for a restoration project. With these new tools, and the new tools are free. And that's a big, right off the bat, every project you can shave off that great big ITP fee right away. And so we're doing surveys with some of our partners and trying to track that, and also looking at both time savings for them, but also time savings for ourselves, because if we can do more, better, and a little happier, and not be bogged down in paperwork, nightmares, that really, that helps everyone. And so we're just unbelievably nitpicky about templates and things like that we have in our program to really try to speed things up. And so it doesn't always play out. Projects are hard. Sometimes things happen, but we're having some amazing, quick events here getting to permits. And we have a couple giant restoration projects that we thought, these are going to take, this is going to take 8 months, ended up taking like 2 months.
Ooh, that's
surprise,
exciting.
So yeah, so things like that are happening, and I think we're going to start to see over time a snowball effect where we're kind of in that first phase of ramping up the pace and scale. So it's not super impressive yet, but we're going to hit that curve, and it's going to go straight up. And so I think give us a year, let's do this again, and I think we're going to have some real gee whiz moments.
That's super exciting. And I will say, that saving of the fee, that's thanks to the legislature for putting into the budget permanent funding for staff in this program. So we should recognize that as well. I mean, that really made this possible. So
it did.
Yeah. Well, I told you all it would go fast. It's gone fast. It's almost 11 o'clock. I need to do my last couple slides to let people know how to contact all of you in case they have any further questions. And to remind you all that if you have questions in general about 30 by 30 and what we are doing to implement it, we do have a document. It's on our website, californianature.ca.gov. Lots of information there about all the work we did to get to this point. And then I want to thank all of you for being here today and let everyone know that we have a bunch more webinars coming, rounding out our virtual expo series. We've got 4 more days scheduled, noting that we added just 2 additional ones right after Thanksgiving. So please come to the last 4 days. This has been a super fun, and I really appreciate everyone's attention and time. Have a great Thursday and a great long weekend, everyone. Take care.